Welcome to another episode of the Rugby Bits podcast. As myself and Sharky are two-man combo today, at 10 and 12, running the pod after a hectic weekend of international rugby. Probably lived up to the billing and what we expected and a lot more. We had, the crazy morning with the All Blacks France game where All Blacks just about took it, and then the Lions also Waratahs put a massive fight. They weren't as clinical. Some guys probably played themselves out of a test cap, especially in the first test, and then obviously the Springboks taking on Italy. Whoa, tough day out there for the Springboks, but got the win, 142-24. Argentina resorted back to normal. England was very good. Ireland got the win, but yeah, a very, very good weekend of international rugby. And Sharky, how you doing, bud?
Oh, Cooks, I'm so good, bro. It is Baltic here. It's just been raining nonstop, but I got to spend the whole day watching rugby on Saturday. I did nothing but watch rugby. That was literally what I did. It was a perfect day for it. So much to talk about. Like, it's clear that it's like the first game for a lot of teams. Like Twitter's been weird. Listen, the Springboks, they do live rent-free in All Blacks fans' heads, eh? Like it's so weird. Like everyone was like because the All Blacks were getting like they were getting a little bit of lip this weekend because of what was said during the week. And I think rightfully so. Like you can't be talking like that and then just barely make it against this French side after you talk about being disrespected. But then the guys were like, yeah, but the Springboks this and Springboks that. I'm like, bro, we're not talking about the Springboks now. Like, it's weird. But anyway. Yeah, and the Lions, and you bang on about the Lions. The guys that played themselves out of it. There are more players put themselves in contention for the test match against the Wallabies by not playing than by playing for the Lions.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I agree with you because also quite a few guys sort of play themselves out of a test cap. But yeah, we'll get to the Lions, we'll get to the rest of it, but we'll start all the way in Loftus. Springbok taking on Italy in their first official tour, first official test match of the season after playing the Barber 3 weeks before, laid up by Chelsea Creole leading the Springboks for the first time. And the Boks unconvincingly won 42-24. I think the real story, the frustrating thing for the Bok fans is that Italy won the second half 21-14, and which is a strange one to say. But Sharky, if you look at the stats of the Boks on the weekend, possession at 57% of the ball. We had 44%, 54% territory, six tries to three, converted all our conversions. We got 479 running meters, 32 defenders beaten, four clean breaks. Gain line carries 89, passes 170, kicks from hand 21. Italy actually outkicked us and got 29. And, you know, it's a hard one to nail. Obviously, you look in the first half, it's 71% possession, and the second half, it's 43% possession, kind of lost control of that game. What's your biggest takeaway from Saturday?
5.5 out of 10. Maybe 6 out of 10. Like you could probably argue for that. My biggest takeaway, we 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 started well, but then we something happened. It got too much for us. We weren't connecting. Maybe we put the cart ahead of the horse. Like we started well, we figured, listen, we're just going to carry on and it'll just roll its way out. And we didn't really have to. We didn't work hard enough to get that dominance back. It was weird. It was such a weird test match. Like I wasn't happy. We didn't perform well. But there weren't any players in particular that were terrible. Like social media this weekend has been crazy. Just like saying the reason why I wasn't big, like Mornay has taken a lot of heat. I don't think he was man of the match. In my view, I don't think he was man of the match. I thought there probably were one or two other guys that deserved the shot better. But he scored two tries. He's there doing his thing. Like he's got to work into it. We've been so lucky with so many players that have really integrated well into the side for a long period of time, and we need to work with guys and let them integrate because we've been so spoiled. But it was a clunky is a great word, I think. I think that's how you can describe it. Just a bit clunky. Like we were good in spaces, we were poor in other spaces. Like to concede a 20-meter maul and them score of that, that shows you that A, the guys are going to be running all week. Like it's very much a case of when you get to training and you want to put your boots on, the coach is like, nah, I wouldn't do that. I'd probably keep my sneakers on because you're just running today. Like it just shows that it just like the cohesion wasn't there. So first test match blues, maybe. I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to say that and convince people of that, especially after last week's Barbarians performance. Just was a bit weird. I don't know where to put my finger on it, to be honest.
I mean, I think it was a bad day in the office.
Yes.
It's one of those ones where, well, I think on Twitter, obviously, there's you kind of see all the things like complacency sort of coming out and things like that, and obviously all the think pieces sort of coming out. I'm like, guys, let's just give it another week. If it happens again, obviously the week on or weekend after, then it becomes sort of a bit of an issue. Yeah, I think for me also credit you got to give credit to Italy. Because I think in the first half, Sharky was quite interesting with the Springboks. I mean, we were a lot more direct. I mean, obviously, look at the side that we picked, obviously, like, but we were a lot more direct because, like, compared to last year, we were happy to obviously try and go wide quite early and be a little bit more expansive. I think maybe without having Peter Steff or Siya that does play a role because obviously they're fantastic at operating on wide. So we're a little bit more direct, which was interesting because in the first half we kind of Italy sort of we just were barraging them and they could not they kept giving penalties and they couldn't get on their own half. Hence we had 7 yard possession in the first half and strangely enough, in the second half, it kind of felt like we lost that little physicality battle. We went they find up. Obviously, I think it was not a good day for the bomb squad, which is so funny the Springboks because that's probably our biggest weapon. I can't remember when last our bench wasn't well, our bench had as bad of a performance as then. But then you do look at the bench, you got the likes of Thomas Tutoy and the likes of you look at Vincent Koch who was sort of coming on for their first cap. There's guys obviously even on the bench who haven't played for a while, and you know there's Mostert as well. The guys like they're coming on and Archie as well. So a lot of people. I mean, I saw comments obviously look saying maybe it's an age thing the bench, but again, I'm going guys. Let's just breathe. It's only been a test. Um, and again, I mean, I thought Italy were fantastic in the second half. The 22 the 25-meter drive. So often you see the Springboks get drilled like that at line out time, and that's proper. I mean, that's something, we record this on a Monday, and on Tuesday tends to be when the Boks have and most sides have their physical day. And let me tell you, I think tomorrow, Tuesday, it is going to be probably one of the most physical days those fours have had in a long time. I think they are going to be, the video station must have been tough, but I have a feeling that they're going to get stuck into each other on Tuesday. There's going to be physicality through the roof. And I think they'll bring that intensity on Saturday. But Sharky, like, yeah, I think I'm the same as you. Like, it just felt weird. It just felt off. Yeah, probably about 5.5 out of 10. In the first half, I thought obviously we took our chances. I mean, Kirtley's trial were brilliant of a set piece move. I thought the nice thing was, Morne van der Berg's box kicks was good again in the weekend. And, like, it was great to see Damian Willemse back. I thought he was good for his first run in Test rugby in 2 years. So there were positive elements in the game. It's just for me, the frustrating thing is it's just that like the way the bomb squad played, the maul try. Um, it also shows Sharky, like, with no Sia, which means that you know, like Monia van Staden, so he's got a bench. Marco van Staden, so he's got a start. Obviously, Kwaka is amazing. We weren't good again at ruck time. I think Italy got some dominance in the breakdown, and obviously a lot of words have been talking about Holly Davidson. I didn't. You'd think on Twitter she was riffing in a wheelchair the way the abuse she was copying, but I thought Italy was able to sort of win the breakdown battle, which is frustrating because they were able to make things messy there and slow it down. I mean, so it's all those things that the box tend to do well. Like I just yeah, just we just seem a little rigid as well. We spent so much time at 22. I felt like we could have left the first half a lot with a lot more points than just 28-3. I felt like we could have just almost blown them away out the game, 30 or 40 point in the first half already with the amount of possession and how much dominance we had. And sometimes my worry is that when you like sometimes when we have the ball, I actually worry sometimes I think sometimes we have too much of the ball. Sometimes we fall in a trap, but we don't know what to do with it. So we bash, 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 and obviously it's about making hits. And then we sort of going, okay, cool, like wait, when's the next idea? Who's gonna create something? And yeah, so I think that was sort of the frustration. It's a little bit too rigid for my liking. Short little glimpses of where we can play, but I'm not stressed. It's the first game. Like that's my thing. It's the first game, and is the bad end of us got out the way early? 100%. I'd rather have this bad day happening now than it happening in a few months' time in Park.
Yeah. So interesting. The Springboks were very narrow in the first half,
Yeah,
which was actually working for us big time. But what else changed for us is that our attacking pods were very different because of that. And then our attacking pods changed, like they stayed kind of different. I think they got a little bit back to the sort of old school a little later, maybe a little second half-ish. But so we definitely changed it up a little bit. The other thing, and one of the reasons why I'm not worried is it's we can't expect to be so supremely focused like it's a World Cup quarterfinal against France in France. And it's a knockout game, and we have led up to this moment, and we've built up to it, etc., etc. But we do expect more from the Springboks, and we expect a little bit more cohesion and all that because we have been seeing so much sort of succession planning and bigger squads built where guys are playing together. So we are expecting more. But playing sides like Italy and Georgia, we also have the opportunity to really float new things, to try and to like really experiment a little bit more. It might not be massive experiments, but it's a different set of pods. Like this is where their strengths are. We can really commit to this new game plan and work it. Because the truth is, if we play 5.5 out of 10, we are still going to win comfortably. And I believe that if let's say we had a really terrible opening 50 minutes, 47 minutes when most of the tight five were changed. If we didn't have a better one and we were behind, I believe that the tactics with the bomb squad and how they would have come on would have also been slightly different. So there's a lot of what ifs and can't be proven whether it's true or not. But a few things. Getting rid of players and complaining about age and all that, whatever, man. Like we've got a whole season. We've got a whole season to look at players. We are not a knee-jerk. Rusty's not a knee-jerk kind of a coach. He's not going to drop a guy out of a squad straight away. The guy's going to get another go. I'm not too phased by it. It was just I'm disappointed, and we're expecting the Boks to be hitting nines out of 10 every single game. That's what we would like to see. It's not realistic. And if we're hitting 9 out of 10 now, it would worry us in the future, especially getting into a World Cup in a couple of years. Like you don't really want to be hitting everything perfectly now. It gives sides opportunity to work you out and all that. With regards to Holly, it's so disappointing to see how people are commenting and what they're saying. It's low hanging fruit to have a go at a referee and blame her like so many sexist things. It was such a load of bullshit. Like it really was. No one had a good game. Like I would rather we had a look at the Springboks and complained about the Springboks than complain about the ref. Because I'm telling you now that Holly Davidson was not responsible for us conceding a 25-meter maul try. Like like we can be completely honest about it. Holly Davidson wasn't responsible for a bomb squad not lifting the game and the tempo up like we expect them to do. Holly Davidson wasn't responsible for player A, B, or C not having a good game. So guys, like grow up, seriously, and like let's look at constructive things that we can complain about. Officiating's been front and center this whole weekend because of TMO interventions and all that. Like it's tiresome. It's something that needs to be worked on and changed. but at least the game's evolving. Unfortunately, it's getting a little bit worse before it gets better because it will get better. We have seen change and we will see change. Let's talk about the rugby and stop being assholes.
Yeah, I just Shaki, I agree with you. I think obviously if it's like it's like one of those, like, a couple of years ago, and you'd have, like, the French refs, and they'll have the same shock like an Angus Gardner would have. Everyone's like, oh, this French guys are useless. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, oh, because an accent, this French guy. I'm like, oh, because maybe the information doesn't sound the same way because obviously he's French. But like with Hoy Davidson, the low hanging fruit is, oh no, she shouldn't be refing a male game. I'm like, that's low hanging fruit. I've seen plenty of refs maybe interpret a breakdown differently or lose control of a breakdown as well, and it male refs as well. It's not a thing of just like, oh, she's just getting in the way, just too slow to keep up. I'm like, that's that's not a first ever test match or men's test matches ref, or she probably refs more male game than men's games and women's games. I mean, like, she's a full on ref in the URC. She's refed us last year as well. So,
Yeah.
and like last year when we were playing, I think she refed against Georgia, and we were throwing the ball in a frantic pace against Georgia. No one was saying she could keep with the game then when we were through. So that's I just don't, I hate the low hanging fruit. Like, rather be upset at her not having control of a breakdown or something like that, or with calls without. It doesn't have to be a, oh, she's just a woman. Like, no, that's not it. Like, because it was a male ref, we complained, maybe saying like, oh, they gave way too much leeway to Italy in breakdown, like in the breakdown, or this
Mm,
and this,
mm.
they're in control of the gain line, or the more time and scrum time was a mess. No, it'll never be. It'll be, oh, because maybe it's from the north, come to the south. What I mean? Like, there's ways of sort of without with nothing to do, but now because she's a woman, the first thing people go to is, no, she should be refing the men's game. So I'm like, so then basically she must be jobless then, because she's basically a URC ref for the men's, and I'm sure she does women's game, but she pretty much does. She's on the URC circuit. She's on
Yeah.
the international circuit. So that for me is the frustrating part. Um, but Sharky, like, you look at the Bok performance. Let's be positive now. Which players for you stood out, and were you happy to have a good game? Who do you think had a good game?
Yeah, like it's a really tough one to answer, especially after this weekend. Like I don't want to be banging the drum on a player that I thought that was excellent, excellent. Um, but I thought Damien Delendi, what he's changed in his game recently, how he's managing things. Like I saw every team I've seen being put out that people want to see coming up this weekend against Italy, Damien's not playing. Like, is that reflected? Do they think he didn't have a good game? Because I thought he was. I didn't think he was bad. Like defensively solid, does his job. He's like he was pretty decent. But it's the kicking game. It's those other options. We always talk about Ma Nonu. Ma Nonu is a gold standard 12. And what's amazing about Ma Nonu is we all saw him when he started and we saw what he could bring. And then it's almost like he went away, but he didn't. But he worked on his game and he changed his game and he came back to be the best and the greatest ever kick pass run 12 ever. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So Damien Delendi is he's a carry 12 and he's got good distribution, which people are slowly starting to see now. That's not a Damien Delendi thing. That's just a game plan thing. But what's happening now is it's evolving where you can't commit double two guys onto Damien. You have to hold back, and that was the thing about Marnani that made him so deadly as well. Is that if you are on your back foot, he will run over you. If you're on your front foot, he's going to draw you and pass. Or if you are shadowing, he's going to then put a little grubber through. And so we're starting to see that. So Damien was the player that I'd like to highlight from the weekend. I thought Marco van Staden was also better than a lot of fans made him out to be. It was, I think, one of his better performances. Other than that, our back three is always a pleasure to watch. Kirtley and Chesney and Willemse is great to get back, but I might just have to pull a fast one and try to bounce that back to you and find out who you did because it was a tough one. But I thought Damien, if I had to pick someone, it would be Damien Delaney.
No, it's I meant Jan Hendrik Wessels earlier, not Thomas du Toit. Um, but
Dude, I was searching that team sheet. I'm like, I'm sure Thomas didn't play, but I
yeah,
must have
I
missed
mentioned Hendrik
something.
Wessels. I don't know why. What made me think of? Oh no, I was reading something about Thomas du Toit as I was sort of getting ready. I was eating supper before the pod. I thought there was a few guys. I mean, I thought were good. I mean, I thought Jasper was good. I was not seeing back. He absolutely carried with venom every time he got the ball. So it was nice to see him back. I thought Vincent had another good test. I thought he got through nicely. I think for me, like it's such a massive year for Vincent Chituka because it's a genuine line option as well, and also like what he does provide because he does look like Rusty. He operates in a different channel as to a Peter Steph Tutor sort of runs, where Peter Steph sort of operates, and it is nice to have the versatility because Peter Steph has after last year he's been fantastic, obviously in the trenches, I mean, like out wide in the trams and the skill level he brings obviously the most incredible work rate, but Vincent brings something else. It seems a little bit more direct, especially with ball in hand, and then obviously
Yes.
great line out time, and it's nice to have. And then you have like Arik Lowe, also completely different when he comes back. So I do think that Vincent also, I thought he got through probably like out of all the negativity that comes, I think one of the guys that got through unscathed. Well, I thought Ox was good. I think Ox has been due a really good game. I mean, it probably wasn't at the level he wanted to be for the Sharks so later on, but I thought Ox was good. I mean, him and Volko absolutely decimated the Italian scrum in the first half. I mean, they ran rings around that Italian scrum, and then obviously I think the bomb squad was. I mean, we said parity in the scrum, but we weren't as dominant as we were in the first half. I mean, in the first half, it felt like every time we get a penalty, either we might push them off their ball or we're getting a penalty. Like our ball was
Yeah.
our ball, their ball was basically ours as well. So there were quite a few guys. I mean, obviously you mentioned I mentioned earlier, Damon Willems. So it's good to see him back. He looked very very sharp, and because it's funny he hasn't played a lot at fullback. I mean, I know he played one or two games in the Stormers, and most of it's been at 12. I did like him shifting to 12 as of was pretty much shifting to 12 in the second half as well, because I do think that is a kind of option we have because the Valencia for me is as close. It's the closest replacement you get to sort of Deland in terms of run kick pass. I know SA has worked very hard to round his game out, but I mean, what Valencia does is also because you can see Delandy last year there's a massive emphasis in his game on his distribution. I mean, he's always been a
Mm.
fantastic passer, but last year there were certain times where last year he was passing more than he carried. And I think this year's obviously a little bit. You can see now he has been a little more direct, but sort of the carry numbers are beating the passing numbers again, where he's been a little bit more direct. I mean, he's always been that direct. So. Yeah, Shock. I did think there were a few guys who were really good games. I think if you look at, I mean, I think the big one, Shocky, is probably the bomb squad. I think that's the sort of the big negative. Are you worried, or do you think it's just again more good Italy than sort of bad Springboks?
I'm not worried at all. It was definitely a combination of the both. Um, Remember now, teams are going to start preparing for the bomb squad.
Yeah,
So you obviously going to want to try and counter this problem that is going to make its way towards you with 20 minutes to go, or 30 or 40. So there's that. And what it does, like I'm such a massive fan of creating disruption in life, in anything. I'm a great fan because it causes, like when someone creates disruption in your life or in work or in a rugby game, it forces you to take alternates and have a look at the different options. And what it does is it'll teach us to combat people in the future. So we're like, cool, this is what Italy did that actually did well against us for our bomb squad. So this is how we're going to mitigate that moving forward. And the other thing is to look at ourselves individually and say, listen, we as a whole didn't really perform as well as we should have coming off the bench. Like the bomb squad is like it's a sought after place to be. No one ever wanted to be on the bench. until this happened. Now everyone's like, if you're the bomb squad, there's a good chance that you're probably the best player in that position on the field, but they're saving you for later because people are looking at the bigger picture. So there's a couple things to look at. Um, I don't have an issue with anyone. Like the only thing that I have is we probably like some of the new guys, so Mornay and Vincent are just going to have to convince the public more because it is easy to blame them because we're not used to watching them week in and week out. So we very quickly want to kind of discard guys and whatever. But there are plans there. What I am very excited about, Cooks, and you mentioned the players that could play blindside flank, but between Vincent and Peter Steff and Ulrich, like we're starting to get to that space again where we can have horses for courses, where we can play at Chituka because of the opposition's play X, Y, and Z, or we play at Chituka because the gaps are going to be in these places here, and that's his strength. So we're in a really, really good spot. But yeah, just to circle back, I think the bomb squad, everyone will know that they didn't play so well. I think it was very clear from Rassie that he, in the post-match presser, said that there was no indication during the week's training that the Springboks were going to play so badly. So that's pretty big, and I think guys are gonna have to deliver. But the nice part about it is we've got the players to do it, and I don't for a second believe that we are not going to be able to get back to where we should.
Yeah, I agree, Sharky. I'm not too stressed. I mean, it does happen from time to time. One thing I think Italy did well to touch on them now is, the bomb squad, especially in South Africa, when they come on all at the same time, the boost from the crowd, and also they had the fireworks on as well when they came on.
Yeah.
I thought like, Italy did well to sort of quickly wrestle back the momentum and shut down the crowd. Because how often the bomb squad goes and it's become a big feature. You wanna, and I thought they did well to silence the crowd then, and then obviously just gain ascension there. But Shark, you talk about Italy. I mean, what a brave performance. I mean, a bunch of youngsters. Shame. I felt bad. I mean, Talo, we mentioned their benches. Their bench was quite decent as well, but it was very good. But you look at in the first half. I mean, yes, they got what, like, what 9 players out who've been rested and in key positions as well. The first half, I mean, for some of the youngsters, I mean, it's a bit deer in the headlights, and the blocks are directly coming at you. They were coming hard, and and it almost felt like it in the bench. Gonzalo Cosette almost said, either front up or fuck off, basically. Like these dogs aren't going to stop coming. So the only way to stop a bully is to front up. And
Yeah.
and for me, I thought Minicello was massive again on the weekend. Was it Zulagi as well? I thought he was massive. So they fronted up, Italy. I mean, and then eventually like they got that maul try, and but also like they sort of found parity, a little bit of parity at scrum time. Just because again, like against the Springboks, all you want to do at scrum time, I always feel like, especially is that you maybe you're getting dominated. Sometimes just find a way to win your ball, even if it's just zone channel one ball. Just find a way to keep a little bit of parity, and on the second half, I thought they did that. And then because then you're stopping a key attacking weapon against the Springboks and a key defensive weapon the Springboks have. When if push comes to shove, they can just. I mean, Jan Hendrik and Vincent Koch, you want them to sort of go and just keep that domination and going. Okay, cool. Like for me, like someone like Jan Vessels, it's a perfect test for him to make a statement. We didn't because now Italy at least found a way to sort of find a little bit of parity. But shocking, I mean, what a brave performance from Italy. And also some good tries, some slick tries as well.
Yeah.
Not just there's a bit of substance, not just all flashes. We've said how many times have we spoken in this podcast about them? We need to find a little bit of substance as well. And I thought at the end of the day they fronted up nicely.
Yeah. They did. It was great rugby to watch. It wasn't like some Argentinian and French sides in the past and Italian sides that are just like operating on pure passion and like glowing eyes and shit like that. It was good to see the bomb squad was something that they used as motivation for themselves. So you always want to kind of play your own game, do your own thing, like focus on like manage what you can manage, and everything else you need to kind of just come to peace with the fact that you can't control it. But use that stuff for them. Their loose trio I thought were quite handy, but specifically, like I'm just reading up here, but Zuliani and Kanani, like they went off in the 58th and the 48th minute, respectively. Like Ross Vincent, I thought was brilliant when he came on. Saf was abroad, like he was always going to want to put in some a big shift, but it was great to see. It was lovely. And I really like the same as, and we'll touch on it with France, and it's the same as we've seen with the Springboks and with a lot of sides, is when you start building up depth, when you start giving players an opportunity to see what Test rugby, to taste it, to dip your toe in the water, play away from home against the Springboks, against the All Blacks, against the whoever's, and you are competitive, it changes things in that squad big time. And this will help the Italian team for a year or two still to come. They will be able to look back at these players and these moments and sort of bind everyone together. So it's been, I would say, like the tour has already been a success for a lot more of those players and a lot of those youngsters. So it was good to see, very good to see, and I'm looking forward to what they bring this weekend. Like I think that's going to be the most important, is following it up.
Yeah, I think that is going to be key because I think one, I think it's twofold, right? I mean, I think what the Springboks will bring, obviously, I think the Springboks will bring a ridiculous level of physicality this weekend and intensity, which is going to go up by tenfold because of, I think, a fire is going to be lit up their asses. And for Italy now is obviously reacting to that, but also it's going to be interesting to see when they go. Because I mean, I do think Siya and Peter come straight back in. I think, Rassi spoke about this. Is the changes will be a bit of bruised ego. There'll be quite a bit of changes. I mean, I think he mentioned last week Peter and Siya should be back this weekend. I think Peter will come in. I think obviously that I'm sure Eben will stay. I see Thomas Tuchel was in media duty, so I'm sure he'll get a gig this weekend as
Ah,
well.
it's a dead certain then, eh? In the
Yeah.
23, done.
Then and then so obviously the box will bring a higher level of intensity. So Italy now is going to be, if you consider consider is twofold for these kids here. Is one is how they react, obviously, and number two is could the fact that they sort of handled the onslaught last week. Now they go, at least they know what to expect. And that those youngsters will go, okay, in the first half, geez, we've seen it now. Now at least we've reacted. We're going to sit down on film. We've seen it. And again, it's about fronting up. Now, obviously, test two, they know what works and what worked and what didn't work. So I'm keen to see how they go in terms of now having experience what the Springboks can bring. And now can go, okay, we know what to do. We know where to front up. Because at the end of the day, with the Springboks, as much as we speak about the Tony Brown effect, that if you got to front up, that's the biggest thing with Springboks. They are going to come at you physically, and it's just about what do you do with that. And I'm sure the Springboks will want to take Italy to the gutter. And for Gonzalo Cosette, I think also it's twofold. I think you're right, Sharky, when you mentioned that he probably leaves this tour, even if whatever happens on the weekend, there's a lot he can take from Test One in terms of the guys he has available. It does show that they got guys, kids, and good players coming through from their juniors. So I'm very interested to see how they do this weekend. But quickly, Sharky, the Test side is not out yet. What's the one big change that you will probably bring in the side?
Um, I would probably start Faf, and I don't know about Peter Steph coming straight in. Not because, like, I wouldn't mind Peter Steph having another week off or maybe coming off the bench, but I'd like to see Sia, Visa, and Chituka play together. Um, yeah, I don't mind. Like, I don't know if we need to bring both Sia and Peter Steph back straight away. But I don't really mind if they do. I would like to see a change at 9. I wouldn't mind seeing a change at 9 and 10, but not necessarily, maybe not personnel, maybe just game plan change. I don't mind if they keep 9 and 10 actually as Morne and Hundred, but maybe a little bit of game plan changing. But if we could get Mani in and him to have a go, I think what we're doing and how we're doing it, this could suit him quite well. And everyone's happy to see Marnie play again because he can kick a rhino. So happy days.
I think I'd like to see some of the Eastern Cape boys get around on the weekend. I'd love to see Mapimpi playing it back at his old stomping ground. I'd like to see Fassi get. I think maybe Fassi being in the mix again. Maybe sort of in the 23. Um, I'd love to see Marnie getting a start. To be honest with you, as well. Then I think we kind of use all three tens. Unless they're playing maybe to start Marnie against Georgia, but I'd love for Marnie to get a start either this week or next week. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a potential. I don't know if it would go 5-3, but I think maybe how they go with Sasha there, maybe Sasha and Willem says 10 and 15. I'd like to see that combination as well. If we don't play a fussy.
5-3, sorry to interrupt you. I think 5-3 is a great shot because we're in a space now where I think we want to see more of the backs playing and
Yeah,
integrating and so I would just purely to give our backs more minutes and to see different options. I think a 5-3 is best for us now. I mean, I know we've got 1,000 forwards. I just think that would probably be the change I would make is to get more of the backs on the field in a game, and 5-3 does that.
yeah, that's what I'm also leaning toward. I would love to see a 5-3. And yeah, I think obviously my thing obviously I'd love to see my PMP playing down in the Eastern
Oh,
Cape
every,
again.
every game,
I
every
think
game.
that would be awesome to see him. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see if we do mix things up, especially in the backs. I mean, we feel like we picked up the same back line pretty much for the last 2 weeks. But we'll get to the Springboks again soon. I mean, now we're gonna sort of go around the world a bit. Sharky, started down in New Zealand, 31-27 win for the All Blacks. France brought the heat. The All Blacks. I mean, they sometimes do tend to be notorious slow starters. But what did you make of that game?
Unbelievable. There were a lot of people bad-mouthing the French. Let's be honest, we all kind of felt that way too. We really wanted to see full strength France go to New Zealand. Like we want to see great tours. That's just the bottom line. I mean, it's natural. But you can also understand why Fabien Galtier has done what he's done. And if you didn't understand it, you can understand it now. France are going to be a bit of a problem moving forward. I think everyone needs to understand that they are starting to build a foundation. Previously, they've got a deadly 15 and a very, very good 23. They're starting to kind of grow that a little bit. What a game! It was so interesting because like France, there were times in that game where they were on top and then the All Blacks got on top and then the All Blacks scored, and you're like, oh, okay, we've seen this movie 1,000 times. Like they're just going to get over them. We've seen France fold and we've seen the All Blacks really pick it up. And then the French even went through periods after conceding a try for a while, kind of sitting back, defending well. I thought their defense was excellent, and then they'd get a try. Sometimes you felt like they were too far away to kind of get back in the game, and then they forced their way back in the game, which is un-French away from home with a depleted side. Like if we're honest, yeah, it was that. That coincided with the All Blacks. I saw a great tweet this weekend. It happened with the Springboks, but someone was saying, "Listen, maybe you can't call them the All Blacks anymore. Maybe we can only refer to them as New Zealand." Um, they haven't earned that yet, but it coincided with the All Blacks performing but not performing. They had a very similar and dare I say it, worse first game than the Springboks did, considering the Springboks are living rent free in the All Blacks fans' heads. I thought I'd deliver it for you. They weren't that good. They couldn't pull away. They kept running up against this wall, and they were kind of going through the motion of the expectation that the French were going to go away. And it almost felt like their whole thing was any minute now, the French will fold and we will win. That's how it felt. And they struggled because the French never went away, and they managed to pull it together at the end. Yeah. I'm very interested to see what they do with Severis being out this weekend. Personally, I think Will Jordan is better at 15 than he is at the wing. He's brilliant at the wing. You don't lose anything. and obviously with having Mackenzie there, but I just think Will Jordan would be best at fullback. So they're probably going to bring, is it Narawa in?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And then I was also very surprised at how little ball Rico Ioane got. He, like the whole point of moving him there it wasn't necessarily that he's not performing at 13, which I personally feel he wasn't good enough. It was it not, it wasn't to move him out of that position, it was more to move him into another position where he could strike, and he just wasn't getting any ball or anything. What it does do is it allows the All Blacks to have a 13 back up on the field, which is great. I mean, you can't deny the fact that he's played there for a while, so he does understand the system. Tupavai, yeah, he was great, but there were a lot of guys that I think probably wanted to do better, but individually there's a lot of good performances, but as a whole they didn't perform. And the French as a whole performed way better than the individual names on that team sheet. They were incredible.
No, other France are incredible. It's funny, with France with about a minute and a half to go and obviously 4 point game, you think yourself some more experienced players they find a way to sort of they just kind of shut the bus the last 3 minutes. But again, that's what happens when you have what nine debutants on the field. And for me, like you mentioned, like they didn't go away. And I think for the All Blacks defensively, it's still a worry, Sharky. It's still they still can be opened up with quite ease. They can still, I
Yes.
mentioned to you, I think what France wanted was to a game where, like I said in the week, like they want a game where it's like 35, 34, and throw it around. They won't be afraid to do it against the All Blacks because I think sides do feel like they can get through them. I think I still don't know where the All Blacks what they want to do. I still sometimes feel like they're so passive on defense. They're wanting teams to run at them as opposed to sort of everyone else is getting off the line, rushing on the line to go meet sides. They still seem very, very passive, and there's holes in there that, especially like you look at the runners that France have, you can sort of run hole, you can find gaps in there, and again, it is the first test sort of woes for New Zealand. I mean, there's like a lack of accuracy in certain times, but again, that happens when you sort of the first test of the season. My worry for New Zealand, I think. I do think they'll get better this weekend in terms of the one thing about the All Blacks, they do tend to kind of, after a bad performance, they do tend to improve most of the time and they come out with guns blazing. But the interesting thing with France that they're getting five players actually essentially who will improve the side dramatically. So that's going to be interesting to see how Galtier sort of manages that, how he uses them. Because I think what Galtier did, I thought he used the bench very, very well. Because he said there's quite a
Yes.
bit. I mean, Woki was good. Other Woki was with the bench, and you had Tamafuna as well. So he had a bit of experience there. I think so because that's where Antala mentioned where with the All Blacks, there's still a chink in the armor of their bench, not as experienced as a French one. And now I think I won't be surprised if Galtier sort of does maybe put three of the five guys on the bench, just a little bit, especially in the forwards, because now you can afford to start maybe a Tamafuna or Cameron Wilkie because he knows I've got some firepower on the bench. And no, yes, maybe they're not immediate starters in that French side, but they'll add so much value coming from Toulouse and Bordeaux, and so I'm very very keen to see what Galtier does this weekend. And I think with the All Blacks, I don't think their aura is sort of leaving. I think they still have that. I mean, they'll still be a quality side. I think the fear factor is slightly dipping with them with certain sides. Certain sides aren't afraid to go, sort of, bar for bar, as the kids would say, and go and be able to sort of you run it, we run it. We'll see who cracks first. And I think, for France as well, it's these guys have shown enough also to go that if they lose every test in this margin, then their job is done. But now, 100% think France also do believe, folks, we can definitely steal a test here, especially this weekend. New Zealand, for me, shocking. They still got so many more questions than answers. I know, like for example, like Fabian Holland did put in a big shift, but I don't think he was impactful. He got around the park, but he didn't. And now for me, like New Zealand, they're in a tough space, shot because I think five lock is a massive. It's not a problem because Vai is the answer at five, but the problem is they shift him at six this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do this weekend. I actually won't be surprised to see potentially already going back to 8 as well. And Duplessis Karifi comes in as a starter as well, maybe. And then and I don't know, but you mentioned Rico. I don't know, Shaki Amori. I still, I don't, he doesn't look like the old Rico as used to be. Like, unfortunately, New Zealand number 11 is kind of, we've seen this movie before as well. Um, I think Narawa does come in at 14, but I thought Mackenzie
I
was good
think
at
that's a
15.
no-brainer for me. I
Yeah.
really think that's a no-brainer.
I think Mackenzie was good at 15. But I think, but I do think that Razor likes the option of having Mackenzie on the bench as utility. I thought Bowden was good at 10 as well. It was nice to see his pace is still there at when at 35 years old. But I think the All Blacks will be fine. I just think, yeah, like it's weird to me with them, Sharky. They got depth, crazy depth in certain positions, but not key ones.
Yeah,
I think that's what hurts them. Is that
yeah,
six is an issue. 10 is, and I think a long-term 10 is an issue because you got Barrett and McKenzie, but Barrett's getting the older side. McKenzie doesn't look like he's doesn't look like he's trusted as a starter at 10. So I thought Jordy was good as well on his return back. I mean, he's always good for them. So I'm keen to see if they'll be able to have the quality this weekend. But man, I mean, that French side, Shockey, is just the depth they're building is getting very, very scary.
yeah. We highlighted it last week, but they had a really big, they had a lot of big forwards at the on the bench, which I thought it was interesting, and I thought was probably something that might backfire. I obviously don't know what I'm talking about because it didn't. And they brought them on early. So it's in that South African mold of having the bench there and bringing them on earlier. Like bring them on and give them opportunity to really kind of force the hand of the opposition. The opposition are going to hold on to their starters for as long as possible and then hope that those bench guys get tired and then they can kind of bring their bench on. So that was very interesting. I thought Tom Spring I enjoyed watching him play. At Sogbe was brilliant at 15. But Seggins was a surprise for me. But the thing is the way he played his game. He played himself. Like he stayed true to himself, which I really enjoyed because I quite like him. He's a very distributing 10. Like he's a 10 that just kind of guides the people around. Like he's not going to Bowden Barrett or McKenzie. He's not going to truck it up like Pollard. Just a very sort of quiet playing within himself 10 and it worked. It was good. With regards to the All Blacks, yeah, there are some key spaces. You are so correct about lock. They've always had locks that really make an impact. So to have a lock really not make a massive impact, but do a very good job, is something that they're going to have to learn how to manage. I really do think that Tupavai starts on the side of the scrum again this week. I'm very interested in that in RD to 8 and Duplessis Karifi starting. That's a very interesting call. I haven't considered it, but it's going to be a very hard, very forward dominated game. The French have balanced out being abrasive and in your face with crazy out wide and in the backs. And they've balanced that so well. I I wouldn't be surprised if the French go similar with a really big blindside flank heavy type bench again. Um, Maybe they unleash the 7-1 against the All Blacks. If they were more of their first choice players, I think they would have, to be fair. But I think they're going to go big again. I think they're going to stick to a similar game plan and just try and clean up a few things that they need to and try and force the All Blacks into making errors because what you said is true. The All Blacks are respected because they are the All Blacks, but your mind stays in the game longer against the All Blacks than what it used to. Previously, you knew they were going to beat you by 30 points. So the sooner you turned off, the sooner that 30 became 60. But now you play a game where you know that there's a chance that you could beat them, and that changes the mental approach. It changes the team, and we saw it with the French. Like they weren't worried about losing to the All Blacks. They were focused on playing their game plan, and beating the All Blacks on home soil.
You know what scares me if I'm an All Black fan is that they have their two biggest rivals at the moment is probably France and us, and unfortunately they can be bullied because I just feel like they don't like I know you listen to Monty Williams and guys like that, but like there's guys who their bench is still not where it needs to be. You know, like if the Springboks pick the same bench at a proper bench when you have like a more stats on the bench and an Arches Steeman off the bench, the All Blacks you think, okay, who am I bringing on to match that? Because the All Blacks, like I mentioned, I think the All Blacks are they've got a slight lock crisis. Because even if Scott Barrett goes down, are you picking a Patrick Palutu who does simple old? So it does look like that they've got a mini crisis at lock as well. So and the problem is now is they two biggest sort of rivals. I mean, including I mean they always beat Ireland when it matters most. So, but you look at France and the Springboks, like they can probably match us at the moment at the starting side. But then once the bench comes in, they don't have an answer because if this French sort of uh, the French forwards come with the bench gives them so much trouble. That's basically the CD/forwards that's giving them problems because like it's not like it's the other. I mean, there's no Crow, there's no Flamen. Flamen who's still got that you got to deal with, and you know, and Jalange who's doing that's been nowhere near that. So that's for me there's a big thing for the All Blacks, but I'm very, very keen to see when they name their starter. I love Razor's press conference, and I also ask him all those questions. It's like, you guys will find out on Thursday once you name the side. And the guys are like, yo, we'll find out on Thursday when you name the side. So it's just shocking that All still don't feel settled yet. It feels like and the side he picked on the weekend, yes, we went with excitement because it just seemed like at least they were balanced. But now we need those guys, the same sort of thinking, and now those guys sort of kick on. But again, maybe it could be first test jitters. We'll see how they go in in test number two. But Sharky, to go across the Tasman, strange one. You know, the Lions beating Waratahs 21-10 on the weekend. Not a great Lions performance. I thought the Tars did very, very well. Too. I thought the Tars were good, very, very good. I think to hang around there, especially that Lions side, and you know, if you look at the Tars side, I mean, obviously they were stripped quite a bit, but I thought they were very good. But for the Lions. Shocky, those guys there, it looks like they sort of played themselves potentially out of a first test spot. Ty Burn has not had a good tour. Um, he did not have a good game as well on the weekend, and I know you as captain. But I'll tell you, a lot of people obviously talking about the disjoint, you know, of the lines. It's just for me, Sharky, like it's not a structure in the way they play thing. I just think there's just been certain individuals who just have not been. They've not sort of played where I would expect it. I would like I mentioned Tyburn. I mean, like I look at it a lot on Saturday and I thought, because you see the way Joe McCarthy played, whenever he's played, he's been very good. And you're going, oh, geez, you went from almost a shoe into are you gonna make the 23?
Hmm. The form forwards for the Lions currently are McCarthy, Genge, probably Josh van der Flier. I
Morgan,
think Morgan, yes, but he's not getting enough game time. That's like he gets a look in and then there's no continuation. But yes, he would definitely be next on the list. What's interesting, I thought Hugo Keenan had a poor game. So it's a coin toss between Hugo Keenan and Blair Kinghorn to start at 15. It almost looks like if Kinghorn has an okay game this weekend, this Wednesday, should I say, against the Brumbies, he starts. So there's that. I agree with you on Tag Burn. I just don't think it's that bad. I just can't see a Lions 23 named without Burn in it. I really can't. And I'm going to go as far as say that he starts. I think that they go Itoje, McCarthy, Burn. and then and Conan, and I don't know who the open side flank is. That's still a little up in the air. Probably Josh Van der Fleer, actually. But yeah, so but for me, the biggest problem that the Lions currently have, I personally believe, is hooker. They have, they don't have anyone after Dan Sheehan that you can guarantee an 8 out of 10 game. Um, you can't even guarantee a 7 out of 10. And that's where I think the issue is. Cowan Dickey and I forget his name,
Yeah.
Kelleher can both produce. They're just not producing now, and I think that's a massive issue for them. So yeah, I think that they managed well up front. Everyone managed well up front. I feel midfield is going to be Archie Ringrose. I thought Tupilatu again hasn't brought the kind of little bit more that you want, but it's very clear that he plays better with Hugh Jones. Like Hugh Jones is running lines, and what he offers is ridiculous. It's crazy. So yeah, I think probably Hansen, Keenan played themselves out of contention. Scott Cummings was incredible. He's almost put himself in a conversation. I don't think he'll make the 23, but he had a great game. Very interesting, and I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but the Lions each game, they are heavily focused on hitting just one jumper in the line out. No, they don't only hit one, but for argument's sake, like Maro Toje will take 11, and
Yeah.
then the Conan will take one, and then Byrne will take one. Or Cummings took, I think he took 14 this weekend, and then there was split with there were three lineouts between two other players, kind of thing. Very interesting, and I can't understand why, because the whole point of having a big blindside flanker and having Conan at 8 was to give yourself other options. Not that they were losing lineouts, I just thought it was very interesting that they were doing that. For the Waratahs, Charlie Gamble should have got man of the match. I don't care the result. He was that good. He was incredible. Magnificent moustache and a great rugby player. And Darby Lancaster was brilliant. Each week, the Lions opposition wingers tend to have absolute blinders.
Yeah.
Last week it happened, and this week Darby Lancaster, who I believe does not have a Super Rugby contract. So I think that'll be changing.
I think that'll be changing as well. But Chuck, if I look at their side to play the Brumbies on Wednesday, I think Ty Furlong is. I think he needs a big game to make sure. Otherwise, because I think Will Stewart's sort of slightly edging him right now. I mean, Genge,
Stewart, I agree with you. Stewart had a terrible game though,
yeah,
but Furlong, this is his game that he needs to
yeah.
say, listen, yeah.
I mean, I think Genge starts. I think Sheehan starts, and then I think Itoje starts. I think so. Funny thing for me, so McCarthy, Chesum, Byrne. I think they sort of. I think McCarthy's another strong game. He starts at 5. And then
McCarthy has to, yeah, yes.
Chisholm, for example, he has a chance to play himself in that side as an extra line option. But because I can see you potentially, I mean, Byrne being in that side, because obviously he does bring obviously versatility. But it's an interesting one because I mean, if I look at in terms of quality and obviously experience, if I'll still go Byrne first before I go Chisholm at 6 before I go Chisholm at 6. So I think obviously Chisholm, McCarthy, and Byrne are all sort of fighting for the same thing. So I think either one of Chisholm and Byrne will sort of be potentially in the mix. I still think the Lions are probably gonna go with Curry at 6 and Van der Fleer for the first test. I don't think if the lineup does if they I mean, obviously lineup has been an issue, but I thought it was better on the weekend. And I'm keen to see how it goes against the Brumbies. But I think I think Van der Fleer starts at 7. So I think Curry obviously is either a bench spot or at 6. I think Connors is at 8. I think the back line, I think I won't be surprised to see that same back line play. I think Kinghorn now, I think, has his chance at 15. So basically, him and Keenan are having a straight shootout for that 15 jersey now. I think um, Keenan got his run on Saturday. Now it's Kinghorn's turn to sort of have a run at that 15 jersey. I won't be surprised to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see Marcus Smith coming on at 15 as well again and seeing because obviously King won't having played on Wednesday. Alan Smith's on the bench on Wednesday. I think because I think Gibson Park and Russell it's their last game until pretty much the 16th until the first test. So maybe someone like Russell and probably plays a full game. Um, but the interesting thing for me is like someone like Marcus Smith. Marcus Smith can sneak his way into a test cap because of being able to cover 10 and 15. And then it allows you to put a potentially if you want to have a Mac Hansen on the bench or like they have this weekend. So it is interesting for me where Andy Farrell's head is, but you look at the side that he's picked now, it does look like a side that you could potentially see in that first test. And I think some guys are, there's are guys on last chance saloon, but I think some, because even like you look at like Alex Mitchell, I don't think he's done enough to take Gibson Park off the 9 jersey. I don't think Finn Smith's done enough to take Finn Russell off the 10 jersey. And so that's especially for the first test. So that's the interesting one. But I was laughing thinking when on Farrell being available. Like in an ideal world, if you're going 5-3, to have him to cover 10, 12, and then you can have even you can even have someone like a Hugh Jones on the bench who can cover sort of 13, 15. King on covers if you start King on, he can cover the wing as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Andy Farrell does. But my biggest point also with the Lions is I saw articles obviously talking about the disjointed attack and things like that. The hard thing for any, I think, Lion side and for any side is getting the attack takes a long time to sort of settle in structures and combinations. And the Lions is different because you're just throwing out so many combinations. And I think the Lions have been a lot more expansive than they will be in the test matches. I think they'll kick a lot more in the test matches. I think what they're doing now is they're finding certain combinations and like you look at that game against the Reds last week where it felt like every time they got the ball in first phase they were going wide.
Hmm.
Every single time we're gonna go wide, 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 wide and see. And it happens when you that's why you have all these games for. I think it's going to be interesting. I think this against the Brumbies, I think it'll be a 65% indication of how they're playing the test match. I don't think they'll, I think they'll show a lot more what they'll show against the Wallabies. I think they'll sort of hold one or two things back. Ben Youngs to me, I think he summed up nicely because he goes, it doesn't matter what you go through as long as you peak by the first test. Like how you get there can be frustrating, but once you hit test number one, like close, what's it? When is it? 19th of July. That's that's when they need to be operating at full tilt. That's when all the questions and defense and that has been answered come that first test. I think obviously the Wallabies had a slow start. I mean, Fiji came guns blazing. The Wallabies gets the one at the end in their first game of the season. But for the Lions, as long as when they get to that first test, they're firing. That's why Shark came in. I do think this approach is which is quite different from previous Lions tours because you kind of saw this. You had the Saturday team, which would normally be the first team, and then you saw the midweek team. I know after the first test that changes quickly because obviously there's a midweek game. There's a midweek game after the first test, but now where it does feel like the test side is taking shape, and they'll have 10 days to prepare for the Wallabies, which is kind of perfect because that means it's longer than a normal test week,
Yeah.
and
It's very interesting how the fans have so like without having been said have bought into this whole process of everything's being tested slowly but surely. We'll put the puzzle pieces together for the first test. It will be chaos if the Lions don't, if they are rusty for that first test, which is gonna be interesting. One thing I do want to chat, and I apologize for interrupting you. Gen, Sheehan, and Furlong. If Furlong gets his form back, that potentially is one of the most skillful front rows I've ever seen. They can punch it as a front row and do all their scrummaging stuff, but my word, they will be so heavily involved with ball in hand.
yeah, 100%. I think. I mean, Genji's been good. I think that, because the thing with Genji, right, is it's almost it's trying to get the Angus Ball effect. I mean, because he's so influential. It's almost it's going to be great to watch those two sort of operating and sort of going at full tilt. But I mean, I don't think Ty Furlong is like physically and like ball carry was he was 2 years ago. But I still think he's got enough. He's still got a little bit of punch left. But I think him and Will Stewart are good sort of bounce back combination. Listen, Philip Bealham has been good as well. Whenever so, but I think tight head for me is a position that Australia can get after. But I think they will have a lot of punch with ball in hand. And I'm very keen to see how they use. I think with Joe McCarthy starting, that does also give them a little bit extra grunt as well. Because it does kind of feel like they're playing with two fours, Toji and Joe McCarthy. Because Joe McCarthy tends to play blindside for Ireland and Leinster. So that is also interesting as well. So I mean, kind of it half makes up for that Kalen Doris miss. I can't help, man. If Doris is in that side, it just changes everything in terms of balance for that group. I mean, Jack Conley obviously fantastic at eight, but I mean, Kenan Doris is. Oh, I mean, because you can still even start him back at seven, at six if needs be, and then you have Conley at eight. I mean, you could so many options to play around with there. But I'm interested to see for me if you look at what's been interesting, Sharky. If you look at this Lions side, like Gibson Park and Finn Russell have played every game together pretty much. It's like so. There's been certain combinations brewing, and obviously we had Hupaludo on Saturday. Now obviously it's Aki and Ringrose's turn to have a go. But you look at like even like a James Lowe's only played when Finn sort of played Bobby Bar. I think so. You're looking at like all those things are important. There's little combinations that Andy Farrell has sort of he's tinkered everywhere else, but certain places he's kind of stayed the same and going. So for me, it's like it's no by chance that it's Gibson Park and Finn if sort of boom weekend like you guys sort of I need you guys to sort of build a connection together and because you can't tell me now he's gonna do that and then come first test and then decide to change things up. I mean, I don't know how well Finn's going to play against that Australia New Zealand the Anzac side. I mean, so. I think the Lions obviously I do think they're in a good place. I think that you do actually yes, it's a bad performance on Saturday, but at least there's answers. So like this is you want. I think if you are Andy Farrell, like you do maybe do want some answers. Sort of like, okay, cool, okay, I kind of know where my head is first test. Because I think obviously after test one, everything's up for grabs again. You kind of the test side, but you kind of know obviously like you might pull one guy here, but so I think we're starting to tell where his head is. I don't think if in the centers you look to split them up. I think he's tried all of them now. I think now he's probably going, no, I think they both work at their best when it's the two of them. And I do think that Aki and Ringrose have been slightly better. I think Ringrose has been phenomenal. Uh, Ringrose probably has been the best center of all of them, basically things. So I think now they're going, I want to try Aki and Ringrose together because I think the Wallabies, one place for them is that Ikitau and Swahili's obviously they're building up a bit of a connection. And also, I'm sending Ringrose down that Swahili channel. Joe Swahili is like, now how do you go up against one of the best defenders at 13 in Ringrose? And Ringrose is quite physical himself. Aki is going to be bombing down. I mean, obviously now it looks like it could be Ben Donaldson at 10 for the first test with Siya going down with a neck injury. So Aki's coming down hard on the Donaldson channel because on the Donaldson channel. So interesting, Sharky, but I still think Australia's best chance is that first test, and if not, I don't know. I think it could be a thin on the cards.
The I everything that they've been working for is going to be the Lions is going to be planned for the first test. If they lose that first test, they're going to revert back to a very different game plan. I heard along the way that Farrell is very, very keen to have Aki and Tuipulotu in the midfield together. I don't think they will split up a country midfield for the first test, so I think Aki Ringrose start. Wouldn't be surprised if Tuipulotu's on the bench and he comes on to join him, or perhaps in the second test if they need to change things up. So that's something to look out for. Agree totally on Ringrose. He's been the better of the lot. I think the 13s have been the best performing midfielders out of all of them. This weekend, though, very much a lack of 12 cover after Aki. So they're obviously going to move Ringrose and then they will move Freeman into 13 to cover that gap if need be. But they don't have anyone else that can play 12. But yeah, this very much seems like they're going to give the guys a bulk of the test guys a run, and everyone's going to have a break. But that's the plan, and everyone has a plan until you get a punch in the face, eh? So that first test is going to be quite something. Marcus Smith, interestingly enough, the Wallabies don't have a Duan Vanamava. They don't have a massive big guy in the back three that's going to be bearing down on you. So Ali maybe, but so Marcus Smith might get a look in because the biggest concern with Marcus Smith is not his defense. The biggest concern is having a 6'6", 120K giant one-on-one with him. That's not great for many people, but Marcus Smith especially. So I think he's going to get a look in. And interestingly enough, he's very much kind of there and not there, where I'm sure Farrell wouldn't play him if he didn't have to. And I think when he does play him because he has to for whatever reason, Marcus Smith is going to again prove that he's like deserves a shot. He spends his whole life trying to convince people, listen, I'm good enough to be here. And then you kind of bench him, and you forget about it, and you think it's okay. I don't really trust this guy. And then he comes on and delivers. And you're like, oh, could have done better with him.
I feel, I mean, I'm a massive Marcus Smith guy, and it's one of those, like, again, he's a maverick, right? There's always going to be that tag against him. Like, it's funny. Like, some people go like, "Oh, defensively he's not great." He's got a better tackle percentage rate than a lot of good tens. I saw this stat. I think it's like higher than Pollard, higher than Finn Russell, high. Like he fronts up. Um,
Yeah.
like
He's
people say,
not scared to get
yeah.
involved for a little
Like,
guy.
like people go like, oh, but like, what do you do if like a Duane Van runs at him? What do you do if Duane Van runs at anyone? Like, like he won't be the first that gets bummed over Duane Van Merwe. So I always feel like Marcus Smith is always fighting a battle, and you know people forget last year that Marcus Smith was probably England's best player. I mean, he was fantastic for England last year. And then I think Borth also doesn't trust him. And he had a bad, especially in the Six Nations early on, did not have a good Six Nations in terms of kicking for poles, and then so kind of lost his jersey. Then obviously I think then everyone goes, okay, but it's also a 15 as well. Then he moves to 15, then he becomes a utility player. I still think, I do like Finn Smith a lot, but I do think the gap between Marcus Smith and Finn Smith is not as big as what everyone makes it out to be. But yeah, I mean, geez, Andy Farrell, give the look at this one start. Like it was,
Marcus Smith has got more chance of getting test games this series than Finn Smith.
yeah.
I'll say that.
I think obviously, like, I mean, yeah, because his versatility and what he can bring. And also the funniest thing, like the way Finn Russell plays, especially like now, like you can, especially the way, like, Andy Farrell does. If you got Bandiaki, you got Jameson Gibson Park on attack. You can almost use, Marcus Smith the same way the Harlequins use him, especially when that Andre Este is in there, of having that big bash, and everything basic of second, third phase comes with Marcus Smith.
Yeah.
9, 12 women, then in fourth, then he's playing with house money. So yeah, it's just, for me, Shark, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But geez, Andy Farrell, please just give the guy a start. I mean, poor Oakers is watching other tens to come in and replace, and he's covering on a Wednesday, and he's covering on the bench on Saturday. Oh man, they'll just like at least wear one starting jersey before the tour ends. But Sharky, let's just do a quick little tour of a quick little international tour before we wrap. Well, number one, I'm gonna ask you a few questions quickly. Number one, is Wales ever gonna win a test match again?
No. I don't think they could ever again. I mean, they went to Japan to go and break their duck, and
And they
then they
were,
got Eddie
and
Jones.
they were leading though.
They
I think
were. They were leading nicely. Um, so I couldn't watch the whole game. Eddie Jones pulled an absolute elite Eddie Jones move. He prepared. He's so good at preparing for a game. That is the one thing Eddie Jones can do. Eddie Jones can pick any game on the calendar, prepare for it, and his team will be competitive. Eddie Jones just was playing super tight. Just it was about 300,000 degrees there, and he's just playing tight, heavy rugby. I think his front row. I don't know if it was the front row, but it was the props. Definitely played a full 80 minutes each. But the last 20 minutes, Japan were just running everything, and Wales couldn't. They just couldn't hold on, man. This is devastating for them. It really is. Like there were guys talking about not about if they were going to break their 17, they were going to break their losing streak. They were talking about by how much, and then they go and lose. It's
nuts.
crazy. But well done to Japan for a largely unknown Japanese side. A whole bunch of guys on. I don't know if there was a whole bunch on debut, but there were a whole bunch of guys that are literally under five cappers. So phenomenal. Michael Leach, he's gonna go forever, forever, bro. It's the new Brad Thorne.
Like it feels like it does not have a single stop. Scotland just beating the Mario All Blacks 29-26.
Oh, Byron McGuigan. You guys would have heard him played for Scotland. He played Scotland Sevens. Schooled at Milnerton. He's a Namibian born, but he's an honorary SAFAs abroad. He's a defensive coach for Scotland. He was involved at Sale. That defensive set was all him. That is massive. They put in a massive defensive set. The last 10, sort of 10, 15 minutes, Scotland were basically defending to protect their lead. And they put in like a 15 phase block at the end to win the game. Massive.
That's huge. Ireland getting a good win, 34-5 over Georgia. And then England winning 35.
Jacob Stockdale, I'm sorry, bro. Jacob Stockdale, bro, he's out of the tour now. Bust something in his shoulder. Guy comes back, is in form, and he's gone again.
Shame.
Poor
I
bloke.
mean, and I also bad for him because obviously he has World Breakthrough Player of the Year, and then obviously struggled with the injuries and then found his way back in the mix and now just just gutting for him to be injured again. And then England beating, I mean, a weakened England side beating a full strength Argentina side, 35-12, 100 caps for George Ford. I mean, that's a proper performance there for England. And that's huge.
Massive. 3-0 at halftime. I think it was 3-0 because of a George Ford drop goal as well, I might add. So it wasn't that boring. Just Argentina just lost Puma did, bro. They just didn't play their rugby. England played well. They did their homework. There are a bunch of new guys that a couple guys put their hand up. Massive growth for a lot of youngsters. It'll help Borthwick moving forward, knowing that he can trust some other people. It was a great win for England. The only problem is Henry Slade broke his hand. He's out for the rest of the tour.
No, I think it's massive. Again, I think England out of all these sides, they're also in a similar, like Italy and France, the weekend side, I mean, obviously for different reasons because of all England's players are on Lions tour. But I think it's massive, shock it for them to go down to Argentina, get the job done, get a win like that. I think it's massive for that young group of players, massive for Portugal as well. That's why, Shock, I'm just saying it again. Low key, England's doing something. And there's quite a few youngsters there. They're doing something low key, and they're not making too much of a splash about it, but they're getting there slowly but surely. And now, again, chance for them to build some depth with their guys in Australia. But they are building some depth. Those Pumas, I don't know. I'm tired. I'm tired.
Just don't make a comeback against us in the rugby championship because you're upset about losing to England.
They're going to beat New Zealand at home this year, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh," because now again it's going to happen. Oh, Argentina does it again. Why do you believe? And then they're going to do something, beat the All Blacks. They better not also get funny ideas against us. I agree with you. They better not get any funny ideas against us. But in Australia, also getting a nice win, nice getting their campaign in a win over Fiji, 21-18. So at least, I mean,
Last minute, eh?
last minute,
Last minute.
but they're up and running. I think obviously, I mean, no Rob Valentini, which is massive. So yeah, I think, and obviously losing Noah Lolesio is probably massive for them. But Sharky, talk about massive defensive set. Go to the Junior World Cup. How epic was the BabyBoks performance against England, especially in the second half?
Yeah, wow, so good. Um, we playing well. It's listen, we want to win everything, and then we play a little tournament beforehand called the Rugby Championship, and we've got like lots of heart left in there still, so we want to win it. But the under 20s play that. We spent our whole life complaining about the under 20 World Championship and us always looking undercooked. So we've got a tournament beforehand, and we enter this Rugby Championship. Excuse me, this under 20 Championship not looking undercooked. And the youngsters played well, man. Boys are throwing it around. There's some fire up front, and we've got some of the biggest backs I've ever seen. It's crazy, but wow, unbelievable. Great defense and great to beat England that way because we we looked good. Then we kind of dropped the ball a little bit, but then came back and just basically didn't even give them a chance towards the end. It was
That was
beautiful.
brilliant. I think, yeah, you mentioned like I think the 12 and Moyo obviously 10 is not a small bugger, but
Moya's like 6'6".
yeah, I mean he was Moyo was phenomenal, I mean, massive boot. But the thing is what I enjoy the most, I mean, we have the Moyos, you have obviously Fenta, I think it's Fenta at 12, but my goodness, do you have pace in their back line as well? I mean, our back three is rapid, and obviously you have Peter at 9, Bishop's boy. They are rapid. And what was nice to see is that we just ran England off their feet as well. Because I think England at the start of the game, especially dominated us up front. And it's
Mm,
scrum time we were struggling. But what kept us in the game is that whenever we got a little bit of space, we got out wide to those beasters and we absolutely ran them ragged. But then for me, Sharky, what was very much impressive that in the second half is that we didn't concede a point and our physicality stepped up. We had an incredible defensive set with about in that sort of 5 minute period where England, and especially like 3 minutes ago, where England sort of is like where they needed to score a try to make, then obviously get the ball back, and we saw how quick the momentum came because England at the stage was leading by, I think they were leading by like 3 points, and then at the blink of the eye they were down by 10 points. Like
yeah.
how did we get here? Like so. It was a very good win. I think obviously now, I mean, I saw Siya got released for our game on Wednesday, and we've made quite a few changes. Also quite a few changes. Obviously, guys got arrested, but I think who do you play on Wednesday? We play
Scotland.
Scotland. So against Scotland. So I think obviously still a strong side. We should be hoping to beat Scotland and then obviously put ourselves into the semi-final. But I mean, that's England. England are, I mean, defending champions. They are phenomenal in this tournament, and they find themselves needing a favor from Scotland as well. We're going to go from defending champs to being knocked out, or well, finding ways to be the best runner up. But
How very England.
how very England. But Shocky. What a weekend of rugby. Thank you so much for joining me. We are gonna try to organize, guys, another a preview pod as well late in the week when we thanks to Rassi Erasmus. We're gonna have preview pods on a Wednesday. The way he sort of brings the team out early enough, but we'll have another preview pod hopefully the Thursday, and then yeah, break down some rugby. We look forward to another fantastic week of rugby. Can't wait. And guys, make sure you like, subscribe, watch us on YouTube. Follow us on all your streaming and podcast platforms. Tyler makes it look so easy when you wrap these things up. And yeah, make sure you take a listen to us, watch us, support us, subscribe. We love your support. And yeah, we'll be back with another episode this week. Cheers, guys.
Bye bye.
Oh no.